The morning sky was still dark when Walter Brown woke up. The alarm clock showed 4:30 a.m., but after 15 years of early shifts, his body hardly needed the reminder anymore. He moved quietly through the small apartment, careful not to wake his teenage daughter who wouldn't need to be up for school for another 3 hours. The kitchen was Walter's first stop. He turned on the small lamp above the stove instead of the overhead light and set about making his coffee and lunch for the day. A turkey sandwich, an apple, and a small bag of pretzels went into his worn lunchbox, the same one his daughter had picked out for him when she was just 7 years old. It was covered in faded stars, but Walter refused to replace it. Good things happen to good people, his grandmother used to tell him. Walter wasn't sure if that was always true, but he tried to live by those words anyway. At 47, he had seen enough of life to know that kindness mattered even when it wasn't returned. By 5:15, he was out the door and walking the 6 blocks to the bus depot. The neighborhood was quiet with only the occasional car passing by. Walter liked this time of day, the peaceful moments before the city fully woke up. He nodded at Mr. Wilson, who was already sweeping the sidewalk in front of his corner store. "Morning, Walter. Ready for another day?" The old shopkeeper called out. "Always ready, Mr. Wilson. Someone's got to keep this city moving," Walter replied with a smile. The bus depot was buzzing with early morning activity when he arrived. Drivers were checking in, mechanics were finishing overnight maintenance, and the operations team was reviewing the day's schedules. "Hey, Walt, you're on downtown Route 37 today?" called out Darlene from the dispatch desk. She'd been running the morning shifts for as long as Walter had been driving. "They're doing construction on Maple Street, so you'll need to take the Oak Street detour." Walter nodded and took the updated route information. He liked Route 37. It covered a mix of neighborhoods, from the business district to the university area, and then through some residential spots before looping back. The people were interesting, and Walter prided himself on knowing many of the regulars by name. After his safety check, Walter settled into the driver's seat of bus number 2317. He adjusted his mirror, moved his seat forward slightly, and placed his water bottle in the holder. The familiar routine was comforting. He pulled out of the depot at exactly 6 a.m., right on schedule. The morning rush went smoothly. Business people with coffee cups and headphones, university students half asleep with backpacks, and hospital workers ending night shifts all moved through his bus in a familiar parade. Walter greeted each one, remembering to ask Professor Hayes about his dog who had been sick last week, and reminding a distracted nursing student that she'd almost left her textbook on the seat. By midday, the crowds had thinned out. The afternoon shift was usually quieter until schools let out and the evening rush began. Walter had just finished his lunch during his break at the Central Transit Center when the skies opened up. Rain poured down suddenly, sending pedestrians running for cover. "Looks like you're in for a wet afternoon," said Lou, another driver who was just starting his shift. "Good thing I packed my extra windbreaker," Walter replied, pulling it from his bag. "These October storms can be tricky." Back on Route 37, Walter carefully navigated the increasingly slick roads. The rain was coming down harder now, reducing visibility and making everyone a little more tense. At stop number 42, near the Children's Museum, Walter pulled up to the curb and opened the doors. Several passengers hurried off, opening umbrellas or pulling up hoods against the downpour. As the last passenger stepped off, Walter noticed something unusual. Standing alone at the bus stop getting soaked by the minute was a small boy. The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old. He wore a bright yellow raincoat that was too big for him, the sleeves hanging past his hands. His backpack was shaped like a dinosaur, and his eyes were wide with what looked like growing panic. Walter hesitated. Bus company policy was clear. Unaccompanied minors under 10 weren't supposed to ride without an adult. But leaving a child alone in this weather, clearly lost or confused, wasn't an option either. "Hey there, buddy," Walter called out gently. "You need to get on?" The boy looked up, his face a mixture of relief and uncertainty. He took a small step toward the bus but stopped. I don't know where my nanny went," the boy said, his voice almost swallowed by a crack of thunder. "We were at the dinosaur exhibit and I wanted to see the T-Rex again, but when I went back, she wasn't there." Walter's heart sank. The poor kid was lost, and in this weather, he looked around hoping to see a frantic adult searching for a child. But the sidewalks were nearly empty now as the rain continued to pour. Why don't you come on in where it's dry and we can figure this out? Walter suggested, his voice calm and reassuring. I'm a bus driver, see my uniform? My name is Walter. What's yours? Tyler, the boy replied, cautiously climbing the steps. His shoes squeaked on the floor, leaving small puddles. Well, Tyler, let's get you dried off a bit. Walter reached under his seat and pulled out a clean hand towel he kept for spills. Here you go. You can sit right up front where I can see you. Tyler took the towel and carefully wiped his face and hands before sitting in the priority seat just behind the driver's compartment. His feet dangled, not reaching the floor. Walter picked up his radio. Dispatch, this is Walter on Route 37. I have a situation here. He explained about the lost child, keeping his voice low and calm. Policy says to bring him to the next transit center where police can meet you. Darlene's voice crackled back. That's about 20 minutes on your route. Can the child tell you his full name or his parents' names? Walter turned to Tyler. Can you tell me your full name, buddy? And maybe your mom or dad's name? Tyler Chen, the boy replied, twisting the hem of his raincoat. My dad's name is William Chen. My mom is in heaven. Walter relayed the information to dispatch, who promised to contact the police and try to locate the father. In the meantime, Walter had a route to complete. Tyler, I need to keep driving my bus route, but you can stay right there where I can see you. We're going to help you find your dad, okay? It might take a little while, but you're safe here with me. Tyler nodded, his small shoulders relaxing slightly. As they continued along the route, Walter kept up a gentle conversation, trying to keep the boy's mind off his worries. He learned that Tyler was in second grade, loved dinosaurs and space, and had a cat named Rocket. My daughter loved dinosaurs too when she was your age, Walter shared. She used to know all their names, even the ones I couldn't pronounce. I know lots of names, Tyler said, brightening a little. Like Parasaurolophus and Pachycephalosaurus. See, those are exactly the ones I can't say. Walter laughed and was rewarded with a small smile from Tyler. At the next few stops, passengers got on, shaking off umbrellas and looking curiously at the small boy sitting up front. Walter simply nodded at them, continuing his conversation with Tyler. One elderly woman seemed to understand the situation immediately and gave Tyler a kind smile before finding her seat. 40 minutes into their journey, Tyler's stomach growled loudly. Sounds like someone's hungry, Walter observed. When did you last eat? Tyler thought for a moment. We had snacks at the museum. Pretzels. Walter reached for his lunchbox. Well, it just so happens that I have some pretzels left from my lunch. And an apple. Would you like those? Tyler's eyes lit up as he nodded. Walter handed over the food, watching as the boy carefully ate the apple down to its core. You know what I was thinking? Walter said as Tyler finished. My bus has over 100 buttons and switches. Would you like to learn what some of them do? This caught Tyler's full attention. Really, can I? Well, not while we're driving, of course. But when we take our break at the transit center, I could show you. By then, the police might be there to help us find your dad. Just then, the radio crackled. Walter, this is dispatch. We've made contact with Tyler Chen's father. He's been searching for his son for the past hour. He's sending his car to meet you at the Westfield Transit Center. Walter felt a wave of relief. Did you hear that, Tyler? Your dad knows where you are now. He's sending someone to pick you up. Is he mad at me? Tyler asked in a small voice. No, buddy. He's just going to be so happy you're safe, Walter assured him. Parents don't get mad about these things. They just worry. As they approached the transit center, the rain finally began to let up. Walter could see a police car waiting near the bus stop. His schedule was now off by nearly an hour, but that hardly mattered. Getting Tyler back to his family was the priority. What Walter didn't know was that across town, William Chen, founder and CEO of one of the city's fastest-growing tech companies, had mobilized not just his private security team, but had also called in favors with the police department and was tracking the bus through the transit authority's GPS system. The simple act of kindness Walter had shown by helping a lost child was about to change his life in ways he couldn't imagine. But for now, as Walter pulled into the transit center and saw the look of relief on Tyler's face at the sight of a familiar security officer waiting by the police car, all that mattered was that a scared little boy was going home. The transit center buzzed with afternoon activity as Walter guided Tyler toward the waiting police officer. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but puddles dotted the pavement, reflecting the gray sky above. Tyler's small hand gripped Walter's larger one tightly as they approached. "Mr. Chen sent me to bring his son home," explained the security officer who stood beside the police officer. The man was tall with broad shoulders and wore a dark suit that seemed too formal for the weather. "I'm Howard, head of security for Chen Innovations." The police officer, a woman with kind eyes named Officer Rivera, knelt down to Tyler's level. "Hi there, Tyler. Your dad has been very worried about you. Are you okay?" Tyler nodded but pressed closer to Walter's side. "Is my dad really mad?" he whispered, looking up at Walter. Walter squeezed the boy's hand reassuringly. "Remember what I told you? He's just happy you're safe." Howard stepped forward with a phone in his hand. "Your father wants to speak with you, Tyler." The boy took the phone cautiously. "Hello, Dad?" His face brightened immediately. "I'm okay. The bus driver helped me. His name is Walter and he gave me an apple and pretzels." Tyler listened for a moment, then looked up at Walter. "Dad wants to talk to you." Walter hesitated before taking the phone. He was already running behind schedule, and Darlene from dispatch had been understanding but clear that he needed to get back en route as soon as possible. "Hello, this is Walter Brown," he said. Professional but warm. "Mr. Brown." The voice on the other end was deep and carried a slight accent. "I cannot thank you enough for helping my son. My name is William Chen. Tyler's nanny lost track of him at the museum and she's been beside herself with worry." "We all have. Anyone would have done the same, Mr. Chen," Walter replied, watching as Officer Rivera helped Tyler fix the zipper on his raincoat. "No, Mr. Brown, not anyone would. You kept my son safe, fed him, and most importantly, kept him calm. I'd like to thank you properly." Walter shook his head even though the man couldn't see him. "That's really not necessary. Just doing my job, well, a bit beyond my job, I guess. I insist," William Chen continued. "Howard will take care of Tyler now, but I'd like to meet you. Would you be available tomorrow?" "I could come to you." Walter glanced at his watch. He was now nearly an hour behind schedule. "Listen, Mr. Chen, I appreciate the gesture, but I need to get back on my route. I'm sure you understand." There was a pause on the other end. "Of course. Perhaps another time. May I have your contact information?" Walter hesitated, but then gave his phone number. He'd probably never hear from the man again, but it seemed rude to refuse after everything that had happened. After saying goodbye to Tyler and watching Howard drive away with the boy safely buckled in the back seat, Walter hurried back to his bus. Officer Rivera had taken his statement while they waited, making the process as quick as possible. "You did a good thing today," she told him before leaving. "That kid's father is apparently some big-shot tech CEO. Who knows? Maybe you'll get a reward." She smiled and winked. Walter shrugged. "Just glad the boy's safe," he replied, climbing back onto his bus. The rest of the route passed in a blur. Walter was tired but satisfied. Darlene had rearranged some of the later pickups to help him catch up on the schedule, and by the end of his shift, he was only 20 minutes behind. Back at the depot, his supervisor, Frank, was waiting for him. "Heard you had some excitement today." "Walt," Frank said, clipboard in hand. "Just a lost kid. Got him back to his family." Frank nodded. "Good work. But next time, try to stay closer to schedule. We had complaints from passengers at the later stops." Walter bit back a reply. Frank was new to the job, had never actually driven a bus himself, and seemed more concerned with timetables than people. Instead, Walter simply nodded. "I'll do my best." The walk home was quiet. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the city with that clean, fresh smell that comes after a good downpour. Walter thought about Tyler and hoped the boy wasn't too shaken up by the day's events. Kids were resilient, but getting lost was scary at any age. His daughter, Keisha, was waiting for him when he opened the apartment door. At 16, she was growing into a thoughtful young woman who reminded Walter more of her mother every day. "You're late, Dad," she said, looking up from her homework spread across the kitchen table. "I was about to call you. Sorry, honey. Had a situation with a lost child today." Walter hung up his jacket and started washing his hands at the sink. Keisha's expression softened. "Is the kid okay?" "Yeah, got him back to his dad. Well, his dad's security guy, actually. Turns out the father is some big-time businessman." Walter opened the refrigerator and studied its contents. "How does spaghetti sound for dinner?" "You made that yesterday," Keisha pointed out. "But it's fine. I can help." As they worked side by side in the small kitchen, Walter told Keisha about his day. She listened attentively, asking questions about Tyler and how he had gotten separated from his nanny. "That was really nice what you did," she said as they sat down to eat. "Most people would have just called it in and kept going." Walter shrugged. "You can't just leave a kid standing in the rain." "That's why you're the best dad," Keisha said with a smile. "You always stop to help." Later that evening, as Walter was getting ready for bed, his phone rang. The number wasn't one he recognized, but something made him answer anyway. "Hello? Mr. Brown? Walter? This is William Chen again. I hope I'm not calling too late." Walter sat down on the edge of his bed, surprised. "No, it's fine. Is Tyler okay?" "He's wonderful, thanks to you. He's finally asleep after telling me all about his adventure on your bus and how you showed him all the controls and taught him about the route." Walter smiled at the memory of Tyler's wide eyes as he'd explained what each button did during their brief break. "He's a bright kid. Picked it all up pretty quickly. That's actually why I'm calling," William continued. "Tyler hasn't stopped talking about you in the bus. He's even asking if he can ride with you again." "Well, I'm not sure about that. There are rules." Of course, William interrupted. "But I was wondering if you might be free this weekend. Perhaps Saturday? I'd like to thank you properly for your kindness. Maybe you and your family could join us for lunch." Walter was taken aback. People like William Chen didn't typically invite bus drivers to lunch. "That's really not necessary, Mr. Chen. Please call me William. And I insist. Tyler would love to see you again, and I'd like to express my gratitude in person." There was a pause. "Unless you're uncomfortable with the idea?" Put that way, it was hard to refuse. Besides, Keisha might enjoy it. I have my daughter, Keisha. She's 16, perfect. She's welcome too, of course. How about Saturday at noon? I could send a car for you. Walter hesitated, but then gave their address. What harm could come from one lunch? We'll be ready. Excellent. I look forward to meeting you properly, Walter. Good night. After hanging up, Walter stared at his phone for a long moment. Had he really just agreed to have lunch with a billionaire? What would they even talk about? He and Keisha didn't exactly move in those circles. When he told Keisha about the invitation the next morning, her reaction wasn't what he expected. Dad, do you know who William Chen is? She exclaimed, nearly choking on her cereal. He founded Chen Innovations. They make all those smart home devices and that new virtual reality system everyone's talking about. Walter shrugged.
He seemed nice enough on the phone. Nice enough?
Dad, he's worth billions. And you're having lunch with him. Keisha was already reaching for her phone. I need to look him up. We have to know what we're walking into. We're walking into a lunch, not a board meeting, Walter said, though he was beginning to feel nervous himself. And don't get too excited. It's probably just a quick thank you meal and then we'll never see them again. Keisha rolled her eyes. Dad, rich people don't invite people to lunch just to say thanks. They send gift baskets or write checks. This is something else. Walter wasn't sure what to make of that. He spent the rest of the day distracted, wondering what William Chen wanted and whether accepting the invitation had been a mistake. That night, he dreamed of buses filled with businessmen in expensive suits, all talking about stocks and investments while he tried desperately to stay en route. He woke up feeling unrested and uncertain about the weekend ahead. Saturday arrived bright and clear, a perfect autumn day with just enough breeze to scatter the colorful leaves that had begun to fall. Walter and Keisha were ready by 11:30, both dressed in the nicest clothes they owned. For Walter, that meant his dark blue suit that he usually saved for church. Keisha wore a simple but elegant dress that had been a splurge for her last birthday. You look nice, Walter told his daughter, feeling a surge of pride. She was growing up so fast. So do you, Dad, she replied, adjusting his tie slightly. Just remember, be yourself. That's who Tyler's dad wants to meet, the guy who helped his son. Walter nodded, grateful for his daughter's wisdom. She was right, of course. William Chen had invited him because of what he did, not because of who he was. At precisely noon, a sleek black car pulled up outside their apartment building. The driver, a polite young man named Paul, held the door open for them. Mr. Chen is looking forward to meeting you both, Paul said as they settled into the luxurious back seat. As the car pulled away, Walter took a deep breath. Whatever came next, he had done the right thing by helping Tyler. Nothing about this lunch would change that. And maybe, just maybe, this unlikely connection might lead to something interesting. Either way, he was about to find out. The sleek black car glided through neighborhoods Walter usually only saw through his bus windows. As they moved from his modest apartment complex toward the wealthier side of the city, the changes were striking: wider streets, larger houses set back behind manicured lawns, and fewer people walking on the sidewalks. "First time in Hillcrest Heights?" asked Paul the driver, catching Walter's eye in the rearview mirror. "I drive through on Route 92 sometimes," Walter replied, "but the bus doesn't stop much in this area." Beside him, Keisha pressed her face closer to the window as they turned onto a tree-lined street where the houses looked more like small mansions. "Dad," she whispered, "I think these houses cost more than you'll make in your entire life." Walter squeezed his daughter's hand. "Probably," he said with a small smile. "But remember, houses don't make the person." The car slowed and turned into a long driveway that curved toward a modern house with large windows and clean lines. It wasn't as ostentatious as some of the older mansions they had passed, but it radiated quiet wealth in its perfect proportions, and the way it seemed to blend with the carefully landscaped grounds. "We're here," Paul announced, stopping at the front entrance. "Mr. Chen is waiting for you inside." Walter stepped out of the car, straightening his tie nervously. Keisha joined him, her eyes wide as she took in their surroundings. "Dad, be cool," she murmured, making him laugh. "I'm always cool," he replied, winking at her. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a woman in simple but elegant clothes. "Mr. Brown, Miss Brown, welcome," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Lucia, the housekeeper. Please come in. Mr. Chen and Tyler are in the garden room." They followed Lucia through an entrance hall with soaring ceilings and minimalist decor. Walter had expected more extravagance, gold fixtures, or fancy artwork, but the house was surprisingly understated, with clean lines and large windows that brought in natural light and views of the garden. Lucia led them to a bright room at the back of the house where glass walls looked out onto a beautifully landscaped garden. A man stood as they entered, and Walter instantly recognized William Chen from the photos Keisha had shown him. He was shorter than Walter had imagined, perhaps in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Walter," at last William stepped forward, extending his hand. His handshake was firm and genuine. "And this must be Keisha. Tyler has been asking every 5 minutes when you would arrive." As if on cue, Tyler burst into the room from a side door, his face lighting up when he saw Walter. The boy was dressed in jeans and a dinosaur sweater that made him look like any ordinary kid, not the son of one of the richest men in the city. "Walter, you came," Tyler exclaimed, running up to him. "Dad, this is the bus driver I told you about. He knows everything about buses and the whole city." Walter chuckled, touched by the boy's enthusiasm. "Not everything, but I try to learn something new every day." William smiled at his son's excitement. "Tyler hasn't stopped talking about your bus and how you helped him. Please sit down." He gestured toward comfortable chairs arranged around a low table set with a light lunch. "I hope you don't mind eating in here. It's Tyler's favorite room," and he insisted. "It's beautiful," Keisha said, finding her voice at last as she gazed at the garden visible through the glass walls. "Those flowers are amazing," William nodded. "My wife planted many of them before she passed away 5 years ago. Tyler and I try to keep them thriving, don't we, buddy?" Tyler nodded solemnly. "Mom loved purple ones best," he said, pointing to a section of violet blooms near a small pond. Walter felt a pang of sympathy. He knew all too well the challenge of raising a child alone after losing a spouse. "My wife loved gardening too," he said quietly. "Though our apartment only has a small balcony, she managed to grow the most beautiful tomatoes and herbs there." Something passed between Walter and William then, a moment of shared understanding that transcended their different backgrounds. They were both fathers doing their best for their children in the shadow of loss. Lunch was less awkward than Walter had feared. The food was simple but delicious: sandwiches, fresh fruit, and homemade lemonade. Tyler kept the conversation flowing with questions about buses, the city, and Walter's job. "How many people ride your bus every day?" the boy asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Walter thought for a moment. "On a busy day, maybe 300 different people. Some ride for just a few stops, others stay on for the whole route." "Do you know all their names?" "Not all, but I know many," Walter replied. "There's Dr. Patel, who works at the hospital. Ms. Lopez, who teaches 2nd grade. That's your grade, right? And Mr. Wilson, who owns the corner store near my apartment." William watched this exchange with interest. You really care about your passengers, don't you? Walter nodded. They're not just passengers to me. They're people with their own stories, their own good days and bad days. A smile or a good morning can make a difference, you know? I do know, William said thoughtfully. In business, people often forget that simple human connection. They see numbers, not faces. He turned to Keisha. And what about you? Tyler tells me you're in high school? Keisha sat up straighter. Yes, sir. 11th grade at Westside High. Any thoughts about college? William asked, passing her a plate of cookies that Lucia had brought in. Keisha hesitated, glancing at her father. I'd like to study engineering. I'm good at math and science, and I like solving problems. Walter felt a surge of pride mixed with worry. Keisha's dreams were big, and while he had been saving for her education since she was born, college costs kept rising faster than his salary. Engineering is a wonderful field, William said, his interest clearly genuine. Any particular area? Renewable energy, Keisha replied without hesitation. I want to help design better solar systems and wind turbines, make them more efficient and accessible to everyone, not just people who can afford expensive setups. William's eyebrows rose. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Have you visited any college campuses yet? The conversation shifted to education, with William offering insights about various engineering programs. Walter mostly listened, grateful for the respect William showed Keisha, treating her ideas and aspirations seriously. After lunch, Tyler begged to show Keisha the koi pond in the garden, and the two went outside, leaving the men alone. William refilled their lemonade glasses. Walter, I want to thank you properly for what you did for Tyler. Walter shook his head. Anyone would have... No, William interrupted gently. Not anyone would have. Most people would have called the authorities and continued with their day. You took personal responsibility for a child you didn't know. You kept him safe, calm, and even happy during what could have been a traumatic experience. He paused. That kind of genuine care for others is rare. Walter looked down at his glass, uncomfortable with the praise but touched by the sincerity behind it. I just did what felt right. And that's exactly why I wanted to meet you, William continued. People who do what's right, regardless of inconvenience or cost to themselves, those are the people who make this world better. He hesitated, then added, I'd like to do something for you, if you'll allow it. Walter tensed slightly. Here it comes, he thought. The rich man's attempt to repay a kindness with money. Mr. Chen, William, please. William. I appreciate the thought, but helping Tyler wasn't about getting anything in return. William smiled. I know that, which is precisely why I want to help. Not as payment, but because people who do good should have good things happen to them too. He leaned forward. Tell me, if you could change one thing in your life right now, what would it be? The question caught Walter off guard. He thought of his aging car that needed constant repairs, the leaky roof in their apartment building that the landlord kept promising to fix, the second job he sometimes took on weekends to help save for Keisha's college fund. Before he could answer, William continued, I noticed how Keisha lit up talking about engineering school. Is that her dream? Walter nodded. Since she was 12. She's smart, smarter than I ever was. Gets straight A's without even trying much. But college costs. What if that wasn't a concern anymore? William asked quietly. Walter stared at him. What do you mean? My foundation provides scholarships for promising students, particularly those interested in STEM fields. Based on what I've seen today, Keisha would be an excellent candidate. William held up a hand as Walter began to protest. This isn't charity, Walter. It's investment in talent. The world needs minds like hers working on the problems she's passionate about. Walter looked out at the garden, where Keisha was laughing as Tyler showed her how the koi fish would come to the surface when he clapped his hands. His throat felt tight with emotion. I don't know what to say, he managed finally. Say you'll let her apply, William replied. That's all I ask. The scholarship is competitive. She'll need to submit her grades, write essays, get recommendations. But if she's as bright and determined as she seems, she has an excellent chance. Walter nodded slowly. She can apply. But she doesn't know about this conversation. Of course, William agreed. The application process is anonymous anyway. The selection committee doesn't know which candidates I've personally referred. Outside, Tyler was now showing Keisha a small robot he had built with his father's help. It rolled along the garden path, stopping to take pictures of flowers. "He's a good kid," Walter observed. "He is," William agreed. "But he needs more than just me and his nanny in his life. He needs to see the world beyond these walls, beyond private schools and planned activities." He hesitated. "Actually, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you." Before he could continue, Tyler and Keisha came back inside, the boy chattering excitedly about showing Keisha his dinosaur collection upstairs. The serious conversation between the men would have to wait. But as Walter watched his daughter's animated face, he felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. Whatever William had been about to propose, today had already brought something precious. Hope for Keisha's future and a reminder that kindness could open unexpected doors. The afternoon stretched pleasantly as Tyler proudly showed his dinosaur collection to Keisha. Walter watched his daughter's patient attention to the boy's excited explanations, her genuine interest in each plastic figure and fossil replica. She'd always been good with younger kids. William moved to stand beside Walter. "Tyler doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly," he said quietly. "He's been quite shy since his mother passed. The nanny who lost him that day, she's worked with us for over a year and he still barely talks to her." Walter nodded, understanding. "Loss changes kids, makes them more guarded. After my wife died, Keisha wouldn't talk to anyone but me for nearly 6 months. How did you help her through it?" William asked, his question carrying the weight of a father still searching for answers. "Time. Patience. Letting her know it was okay to be sad. Okay to miss her mom." Walter paused, thinking back to those difficult days. "And routine. Kids need something steady when everything else feels like it's falling apart." William seemed to absorb these words carefully. "That's partly what I wanted to discuss with you earlier," he said, lowering his voice further as Tyler showed Keisha how to identify different dinosaur species by their teeth. "I have a proposal that might sound unusual, but I hope you'll consider it." Walter raised an eyebrow, curious but cautious. "Tyler needs more positive influences in his life. People who are," William searched for the right words, "real, grounded. Since meeting you, he's talked about nothing but buses and routes in the city neighborhoods. He's curious about the world beyond these walls in a way I haven't seen before." Walter waited, still not sure where this was heading. "I'm wondering if you might consider spending time with Tyler occasionally, like a mentorship." William rushed to clarify. "Paid, of course, well paid. But it's not about the money. It's about Tyler having someone in his life who sees the world differently than I do. Someone who could perhaps take him on simple outings, show him parts of the city he wouldn't normally experience." Walter hadn't expected this. "You want me to babysit your son?" William winced slightly. "That's not exactly—" "I'm sorry," Walter said quickly. "I didn't mean it like that. I'm just surprised. You hardly know me." "I know you're the man who made sure my son was safe when he was lost and scared," William replied. "I know you're raising a daughter who's clearly thoughtful and responsible. And I know Tyler lights up around you in a way I haven't seen in a long time." Across the room, Tyler was demonstrating a dinosaur video game to Keisha, who was listening attentively to his instructions. "I could run a background check if it would make you more comfortable," William added, then smiled slightly at Walter's expression. "I'm joking, mostly." Walter couldn't help but laugh. "Your security team probably ran one the minute Tyler mentioned my name. The minute the transit authority gave us your name," William admitted, with a wry smile. "Standard procedure when it comes to Tyler." Walter appreciated the honesty. He looked over at the children again, thinking, "What exactly did you have in mind? Maybe one Saturday a month? Tyler could join you for part of the day, ordinary activities. A trip to the park, a burger somewhere, maybe even a ride on your bus route if that's allowed." William ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly human gesture from a man worth billions. "I don't want him growing up in a bubble, Walter. Money creates walls even when you don't intend it to." Walter understood more than William might realize. He saw it every day on his routes, how different parts of the city rarely mixed, how people stayed in their familiar territories. "And Keisha could come along?" "Of course. Tyler already admires her." Walter nodded slowly. "Let me think about it. Talk to Keisha. That's all I ask," William said, relief evident in his voice. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly. Tyler convinced William to give them a tour of the house, including his home office where sleek computers and prototype devices suggested the technological innovation that had built his fortune. "This is where Dad invents stuff," Tyler explained proudly, pointing to a work table covered with circuit boards and small tools. "Not invents, develops," William corrected gently. "I have a whole team of brilliant engineers who do the real inventing." Keisha stared wide-eyed at a partially assembled device. "Is that the new Chen reality headset?" "It's not even on the market yet." William smiled. "Good eye. Yes, we're still refining the interface before release. Are you interested in VR technology?" "I'm interested in everything," Keisha replied honestly, "but especially how technology can solve real problems." "The best engineers think that way," William said, giving Walter a meaningful look. "Problem solvers change the world." As evening approached, Paul arrived to drive Walter and Keisha home. Tyler looked disappointed, clinging to Walter's hand as they walked to the front door. "Will you come back?" the boy asked, his voice small. Walter crouched down to meet Tyler's eyes. "I think so, buddy. Your dad and I are talking about it." Tyler's face brightened immediately. "You could see my school and my karate class, and we could ride on your bus together." "One thing at a time," William said, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "Let's not overwhelm them." As they said their goodbyes, William handed Walter a business card. "My personal number," he explained. "Think about what we discussed. No pressure, but I believe it could be good for everyone involved." The drive home was quieter than the journey there. Keisha stared out the window, lost in thought, while Walter turned the day's events over in his mind. "He's offering you a side job," Keisha said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Seems that way," Walter agreed. "You should take it," she said with a decisiveness that surprised him. "That little boy needs someone like you in his life." Walter glanced at his daughter. "You think so? Dad, did you see his face when he was showing you his toys? He looks at you like you're some kind of superhero." Keisha smiled. "Besides, I like him. He's a good kid. Smart, too." "What about the scholarship thing?" Walter asked cautiously. "Does that feel, I don't know, like charity to you?" Keisha thought for a moment. "No," she said finally. "It feels like an opportunity. Mr. Chen said it was competitive, right? That means I'd have to earn it." She turned to look at him directly. "And we both know I can't go to engineering school without help. Not unless you want to work 3 jobs and never sleep." Walter sighed. "You're too practical sometimes. You get that from your mother." "I know," Keisha said, her voice softening. She'd say take the chance when it comes. Back at their apartment, Walter found himself unable to sleep. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, William's business card in front of him. The events of the past few days felt unreal, from finding a lost child on his bus to sitting in a millionaire's house discussing scholarships and mentoring. His phone pinged with a text message. It was from Frank, his supervisor. "Need you to cover Route 92 tomorrow. Jenkins called in sick." Reality check, Walter thought with a wry smile. No matter what else happened, buses still needed driving, routes still needed covering. The city didn't stop moving just because one bus driver's life had taken an unexpected turn. The next morning, Walter was up before dawn as usual. As he moved through his quiet routine, coffee, lunch packing, checking the weather, he made his decision. He would call William Chen and accept his proposal. Not for the money, though the extra income would certainly help. Not even for Keisha's potential scholarship, though he desperately wanted that for her. He would do it because a little boy who had already lost his mother deserved all the stability and care the world could offer him, and if Walter could provide some small part of that, how could he refuse? As he walked to the bus depot in the pre-dawn darkness, Walter felt a new sense of purpose. His ordinary life had suddenly expanded in ways he couldn't have imagined, all because he'd done the simple, human thing, helping a child who needed him. The city was just beginning to wake up as Walter started his route. The familiar rhythm of stops and starts, the nods to regular passengers, the careful navigation of morning traffic. It all felt the same, yet somehow different. As if the world had shifted slightly on its axis, revealing new possibilities. During his break, Walter took out his phone and dialed the number on William's card. The call was answered on the second ring. "Walter?" William's voice carried genuine pleasure. "I was hoping to hear from you." "I've been thinking about your offer," Walter said. "About spending time with Tyler, and?" The hope in William's voice was unmistakable. I'd like to try it, Walter said. One Saturday a month to start. We'll see how it goes. That's wonderful news, William replied. Tyler will be thrilled. And Keisha? She's welcome to join as well. She'd like that, Walter said. She's good with kids. Always has been. There was a pause, then William added, about the scholarship we discussed. The foundation is accepting applications now. I've taken the liberty of having the form sent to your email. Walter smiled, not surprised that William already had his email address. Thank you. Keisha will work on it this weekend. As they finalized details, Walter glanced out the bus window at the city passing by. The same streets he'd driven for years, now somehow filled with new promise. In the reflection, he caught a glimpse of himself. Still the same bus driver, still the same father doing his best for his daughter. But now, unexpectedly, he was also a mentor, a guide, a bridge between worlds that rarely connected. His grandmother's words came back to him. Good things happen to good people. Maybe she had been right after all. As he ended the call and prepared to resume his route, Walter felt lighter than he had in years. Sometimes the simple act of helping a lost child could change everything, not just for the child but for everyone involved. The road ahead might have unexpected turns, but for the first time in a long while, Walter was curious to see where it would lead. 6 months had passed since Walter first found Tyler standing alone at that rainy bus stop. Spring had arrived, bringing new growth to the city and new developments in the unlikely friendship between the bus driver and the billionaire's son. Saturday mornings had taken on a new rhythm in Walter's life. Once a month, he and Keisha would meet Tyler at a predetermined location. Sometimes a park, sometimes a museum, once even at the bus depot where Walter showed Tyler how the buses were maintained and cleaned. Today, they were meeting at the community garden where Walter had recently rented a small plot. The weather was perfect, warm sunshine with a light breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers and fresh soil. Dad, they're here, Keisha called, waving toward the garden entrance where a familiar black car had pulled up. Tyler bounded out before Howard, the security man, could fully open the door. At 8 years old, the boy seemed to have grown taller in the months they'd known him. He wore jeans with grass stains on the knees and a t-shirt with planets printed across it, looking more like an ordinary kid and less like a billionaire's son with each visit. Walter. Keisha, he called out, running toward them with a small bag clutched in his hands. I brought the seeds. Dad helped me pick them out. Walter smiled, ruffling the boy's hair as he arrived breathless with excitement. Easy there, buddy. The garden's not going anywhere. Howard nodded respectfully to Walter from the garden entrance. Unlike the early days, he no longer stayed for the entire outing, instead dropping Tyler off and returning later. A sign of growing trust that Walter appreciated. So what seeds did you bring? Keisha asked, kneeling down to Tyler's level. Sunflowers. Dad says they can grow taller than him. Tyler carefully opened the bag to reveal the black and white striped seeds inside. And carrots too, because they grow underground, and that's cool. Perfect choices, Walter said, leading them toward the small patch of earth he'd been preparing all week. I brought tomatoes and bell peppers. Between all of them, we'll have quite a garden. For the next hour, the three of them worked the soil, creating neat rows and carefully planting seeds according to the instructions. Tyler insisted on doing as much as possible himself, his small fingers pressing seeds into the dirt with intense concentration. My mom loved gardens, Tyler said suddenly as he patted soil over a carrot seed. Dad says she could make anything grow. Walter and Keisha exchanged a glance, recognizing a rare mention of Tyler's mother. The boy rarely spoke about her even now. My mom was the same way, Keisha said gently. She grew tomatoes on our little balcony that were better than anything from the store. Tyler looked up, interested. Really? Did she teach you how? Some, Keisha replied. But I was younger than you when she passed away. Dad remembers more of her gardening tips than I do. Like what? Tyler asked, turning to Walter. Walter smiled, remembering. She always said to talk to the plants. Tell them they're doing a good job growing. She believed they could hear us. Tyler's eyes widened. Really? Does it work? I don't know for sure, Walter admitted. But our tomatoes were always the best in the building, so maybe she was right. Tyler immediately bent down to the freshly planted seeds. Hello, sunflowers, he whispered seriously. Please grow really tall. I'll come visit you and bring water. Walter felt a tightness in his chest as he watched. These moments, simple, honest, human, were why he'd agreed to William's proposal. Tyler was learning things that couldn't be taught in his private school or in the carefully controlled environment of his home. After they finished planting, they sat on a bench in the community garden, sharing sandwiches and lemonade that Walter had packed. Around them, other gardeners worked their plots. An elderly couple tending to flourishing pea vines, a young woman with purple hair harvesting early lettuce, a family with 3 small children watering newly planted seedlings. "Everyone's so different here," Tyler observed, watching the diverse group of gardeners. "At my school, everybody looks the same and talks the same." Walter nodded. "That's one of the best things about places like this. All kinds of people coming together because they love the same thing, watching things grow." "Like you and my dad," Tyler said, the observation startlingly perceptive for an 8-year-old. "You're really different, but you both like helping people." Walter and Keisha exchanged another glance, impressed by the boy's insight. "Speaking of your dad," Keisha said, checking her phone, "he's coming to pick you up today instead of Howard, right?" Tyler nodded, his face brightening. "He's bringing good news. He wouldn't tell me what it is, but he said it's something special." As if on cue, a different car, still black but smaller and less imposing than the usual one, pulled up to the garden entrance. William Chen stepped out, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. Without the business suits he usually wore, he looked younger, more approachable. "Dad!" Tyler ran to his father, who caught him in a hug. "We planted everything. Come see." William allowed himself to be pulled toward the garden plot, greeting Walter and Keisha warmly. "The gardener himself," he said to Walter with a smile. "Tyler's been talking about today all week." "He did a great job," Walter replied. "Got his hands properly dirty, too." William looked at his son's soil-stained fingers with approval rather than concern. That's what childhood should be about. Getting dirty, making things grow. He glanced around the community garden. "This is wonderful. I didn't even know this place existed, and it's only 10 minutes from our house." "Most people don't notice it," Walter said, too busy rushing from one place to another. William nodded thoughtfully. "I've been guilty of that myself." He looked at Keisha. "But I have been paying attention to some things. Which reminds me, I have news." Tyler bounced on his toes. "The special news. Can you tell us now?" William laughed. "Yes, I think now is the perfect time." He turned to Keisha. "The Chen Foundation Scholarship Committee met yesterday. The decisions have been made for the coming academic year." Keisha froze, sandwich halfway to her mouth. Walter felt his heart begin to race. They'd almost forgotten about the scholarship application in the busy months since their first meeting. "They were extremely impressed by your application," William continued, his smile growing. "Your essays on renewable energy innovations for underserved communities were particularly compelling. The committee asked me to inform you personally that you've been awarded a full scholarship, including living expenses, for the engineering program of your choice." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Keisha's sandwich fell to the ground as she covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes filling with tears. "Are you serious?" she whispered. William nodded. "Completely serious. You earned this, Keisha. Your grades, your vision, your determination. These are exactly the qualities the foundation looks for." Walter couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. All his years of early mornings, long shifts, careful saving, they had been leading to this moment, this opportunity for his daughter. But it would never have happened if he hadn't stopped for a lost little boy on a rainy afternoon. Tyler, not fully understanding the significance but sensing the emotion, tugged at Keisha's sleeve. "Does this mean you're going to college to learn how to build stuff?" Keisha nodded, wiping away tears. "Yes, buddy. That's exactly what it means." "Cool," Tyler declared. "Can you build me a robot that helps plants grow?" That broke the tension and they all laughed. "Maybe that can be my first project," Keisha said, giving him a quick hug. As they walked back toward the cars, William fell into step beside Walter. "I hope you know that the scholarship was entirely on merit. I only ensured her application was seen. The committee made their decision independently." "I believe you," Walter said. "Keisha's always been brilliant. She just needed the chance," William nodded. "Sometimes that's all any of us need. The right chance at the right moment." He glanced at Tyler, who was walking ahead with Keisha, describing the robot he imagined her building. "Your monthly outings with Tyler have been that kind of chance for him. He's different now, more confident, more curious about the world." "He's a good kid," Walter said simply. Just needed to get his hands dirty sometimes. We all do, William replied thoughtfully. As they reached the cars, Tyler suddenly turned back. Dad, can Walter and Keisha come for dinner? To celebrate the scholarship, please? William raised an eyebrow at Walter. What do you say? A proper celebration seems in order. Walter looked at his daughter's glowing face, at Tyler's hopeful expression, at William's genuine invitation. 6 months ago, he couldn't have imagined standing in a community garden with a billionaire, being invited to dinner as a friend rather than an employee, all because he'd made a simple choice to help a child in need. We'd be honored, Walter said. But fair warning, Keisha's going to talk about renewable energy the whole time. Perfect, William laughed. I have some ideas about solar panel efficiency I've been wanting to discuss with a future engineer. As they said their temporary goodbyes, Walter looked back at the small plot of earth they'd planted together. Seeds in the ground beginning to grow, like the unexpected friendship between two families from different worlds. Like the opportunities now opening up for Keisha. Like the confidence blooming in Tyler. His grandmother had been right after all. Good things do happen to good people, sometimes in ways you could never predict, starting with the smallest acts of kindness on an ordinary rainy day.